us. Hello. It's so good to see you.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for having me. And really sorry not to be here in person. I wish I could be here, but I'm just a few weeks away from giving birth, so I had to stay home.
So congrats already, and we hope that we're gonna see you in person next year. Let's see, maybe we're also gonna
Next
be.
year, of course.
There is going to be a next year, so I already spoiled that one now. So I hope that everyone is already looking forward to it as well. Maybe we're also gonna be more active in France. Let's see. But before we get started with our topic, I would ask you for a brief intro so that we can also learn more about you, your background, and how you became the director of La French Tech.
My name is Clara Chapez. I'm the director of Mission French Tech since now almost 7 months, so still quite new in the job. Before that, I always worked in startups. So it's my first time in the public sector. After almost 10 years working in startup all stages all around the world, I had the chance to live in Hong Kong, in Bangkok, in Singapore, in the US, in UK. I came back to France a bit more than 3 years ago to join one of the big startups here called Vestiaire Collectif, which is a company that helps people buy and sell their clothes and fashion products online. But after these experiences, I wanted to make sure I could join a movement, join something that would have a bigger impact on the tech ecosystem and could help the entire ecosystem. Because everywhere I've been traveling in the world, there was always these discussions around is it really possible to start a company in France nowadays? How has the tech ecosystem evolved? What is going on? And so when the opportunity came to lead this French Tech mission, it was a really unique one because this is a 3-year mandate to really help all the entrepreneurs, all the investors, everyone kind of coming together, the entire ecosystem through the public sector. And this is very unique, I think, in the world, and probably part of the reasons of the success of French Tech, that back in 2013, so almost 10 years ago now, the state thought if we really want to be serious about entrepreneurship, we have to really work all together and put all the stakeholders in one room, and not have the entrepreneurs on one side, the investors on the other one, and then the state on the other one as a regulator. But we have to build this common strategies, this common roadmap. And so this administration was created back then with this idea that our goal is really to put the startups center of the French economy. And fast forward almost 10 years, I think that has been quite a big success when we see the results when it comes to the number of startups. We now have 20,000 startups in France, the size they've reached with 26 unicorns. And most importantly, the job creation that has come from these startups. We have 1 million people who work directly or indirectly in the French tech startups in France. And that's a big success because it's really become part of people's daily life. It's more than 50% of the French population that use one of their products or services every day. So it's not like a geeky, niche sector anymore. It's really part of the economy, part of the society, and that's something we're extremely proud of.
I think this is definitely something to be very proud of, and I love the numbers that you shared because I can really feel that, you as a country and as a government have realized that startups are not, as you said, something that is like a geeky thing that is just a small part of the economy, but something that can actually be the driver of a huge change in a country, to drive innovation, to build the digital champions of tomorrow, and to create a lot of jobs. And I think this is something that a lot of governments still need to learn. So I used to advise the Austrian government on exactly these kind of topics, and we try to do exactly what you were saying, like bring the people to the table, make sure that everyone is like pulling on one string and make sure that the ecosystem is changing. And I think really France has been doing a magnificent job in this. So really like congrats on all the achievements that you've seen and establishing the ecosystem as it is. So now as we now have the bigger scope on the ecosystem and insights on what is happening and some numbers, I would like to dive specifically in the topic of diversity and inclusion. So from your perspective, Clara, how diverse and how inclusive is the French ecosystem, and what are you actively doing to make sure that it's becoming more and more inclusive by the day?
This is an extremely important topic for us because I'm often asked, oh, okay, like now the ecosystem has grown so much, what's next? Obviously, I mean, we've grown a lot, but there's still a huge lot to do. When you think about like the bigger tech companies worldwide, most of them are either in the US or in Asia, the listed ones. Even with the stock markets nowadays, there's still the American and Asian ones. So we still have a huge room to play in Europe to really create a European tech ecosystem that comes to the height of the American one or the Asian one. So that's definitely like growth is still one of the focus. Like it's not like we've made it all and now everything is kind of set. There's still a lot to do. But most importantly, we also want to make sure that the whole dynamic I talked about, the job creation, the innovation, all the dynamism of the sector is also much more diverse, because truth is that the sector as it is today is not. It's not because it's more or less only 23% of women working in the tech sector in France, so quite far away from parity. It's mostly highly educated people founding companies. More than 70% of founders in France are still coming from the grande école, the big schools, all engineering and business schools, pretty much, very dedicated to elites and not necessarily open to all the population. We also have a big concentration of funding in the Paris region. You have half of the companies that are funded outside of Paris, but 80% of the funds are still allocated to Paris startups. So there's also this idea of how do we make sure that the innovation, the startups can really grow and develop everywhere in France. So this is something that has been close to the heart of the mission from the beginning, not just because it's how the world should be, and that's really something we believe in, and it's really important for society, but also it's not just altruism. It's also because when you think of the dynamism of the sector, one of the key challenge entrepreneurs all face today is the search for talent. And talents are everywhere. There are those women, there are those people who might not have done those really big studies. There are people who are outside of Paris. There are so many talented people ready to work in tech in France. But today, they're kind of, they're not involved enough in the sector. They're not welcomed enough in the sector. So what do we do to solve that? We do quite a few things. One of the programs we have that is the most, I think the most exciting program we've launched is called French Tech Tremplin. And it's a program that is dedicated to people who maybe are unemployed, are refugees, are living in some tough cities in the country or in really remote rural areas. And they can be selected to join this program, where we first help them to kind of really think their idea, prepare a business plan, prepare a pitch deck, really make sure they're ready to go after the project. And then if they enter the second phase, they also get a chance to be incubated in one of the big incubators we have in the country. We have hundreds of incubators that are official partners for this program. And they get financial support to start developing their first material, start hiring the first people. And this program is bringing more than 300 entrepreneurs to the tech ecosystem every year, which is a lot and also not a lot. But what we have also happening after those 300 per year, 300 entrepreneurs per year join the program is it creates kind of a role model. They become role models for the entire population that regardless of your background, whether you've been an expert in tech before or not, whether you've been to those schools or not, you can launch a company. And there is a way for you to succeed. And that's something that is extremely important because it really helps break down the barriers to entrepreneurship. Another big focus for us is women in tech. Unfortunately, we're not the only country with those statistics. I think this is pretty much shared all around the world. But something we're really aiming for is also bridging this gap. So one of the very concrete way we worked on this in the last few months is we have this program that kind of brings together the top 120 companies in tech called French Tech 120 and the top 40 next 40. A bit on the model of what we see on the stock market in France. We have the CAC 40 and the SBF 120, which are the big index for the most performing companies. So we've created this index in tech for private companies, which is really great because it gives them a lot of credibility, of recognition. Everyone knows if you're part of this program, you're one of the top performing tech startup companies. So you have quite some credibility. But my belief is that with this credibility and with this label comes also some responsibilities, because they're leading the ecosystem. They're the ones that are always asked for their opinion. They're the one we talk to when it comes to building policies. They're the one you will find on conferences. So they have to also lead by example and show that this topic of diversity can be something we proactively work on, and they actually really want to do it. So a few months ago, we started this initiative with them, thinking what can we do as an ecosystem, what can companies do to really help promote women in the sector. And we had a lot of workshops. Everyone kind of shared, oh, I've tried this in my company, I've tried that in my company. And it was really great to see like just those entrepreneurs, very talented entrepreneurs, being very humble and learning from each other on what we can do. And out of this big initiative came something we call the Parity Pact that was launched just 2 days ago, actually. And more than half of the 120 companies signed 5 big rules of engagement that they wanted to have in their companies, their respective companies, going from having some commitments towards the number of women on their boards and how they would really make sure that not only male VC partners would be on their board, but also make room for maybe independent board members, women members. We could bring some diversity to making sure they commit to train all their managers on those unconscious bias that sometimes can lead to an uncomfortable workplace for women, to making sure that their recruitment process are much more open to women. Or another one is making sure that they really think through everything around maternity leave, because those companies grow so fast. Oftentimes when women come back into the workplace after 4 months, which is the number of months you stop in France, everything has changed. And if they want to continue attracting women, if they want to have more and more role models, if they want to have more and more women going into their companies, they also need to make sure they can help them throughout their careers. It was a very, very exciting initiative for us, because we just released it 2 days ago, and we've more than doubled the number of signatories in 24 hours.
Wow.
Because again, with this idea that those companies, they can be the leading example, and then they can really bring the entire tech ecosystem forward. And that's something they're happily doing at the moment.
Wow. This is really impressive, and I love to see how excited you are about all these initiatives, because I feel that especially when it comes to fostering diversity and inclusion in tech ecosystems, obviously things are not moving as fast as they should be, right? Because if that was the case, we would not need to talk about this.
Not talk about it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think, and this is my very personal belief, and I assume that it's probably shared with a lot of people also in the audience, that obviously you see that the markets are not solving this issue, and therefore I think that it's the duty of governments to some extent and public initiatives to actually change this, because otherwise we will be having this conversation or these discussions for the next hundreds of years. And yesterday at the event, we learned that when we move at this speed of fostering equality and diversity, we're going to live in an equal society in 200 years from now, which is insanely to think about this. I mean,
that's not something we want to accept.
Exactly. It's definitely way too slow. So we have to have a look at the Parity Pact. I think that's pretty cool and something that a lot of people can learn from and also implement in other countries and companies.
I was about to say, I think for us the next step is please share it, because I'm sure we would be so happy that other countries join. So.
Yeah, happy to do this. So we're going to reach out and share it with as many companies and countries as possible. I have one final question because there's a lot of entrepreneurs obviously out there in the audience, most of them being based in Europe, because our focus definitely is to also make sure that the European tech ecosystem is growing and is becoming successful and is especially becoming well known for being inclusive and diverse. So to the founders out there, what's your advice if they actively think about entering the French market? How to do this, where to go to, what's the go-to organization, go-to person, and how can they actually make sure that they are winning the French market?
First of all, I'd say like we would be very, very happy if they come here. France has been doing a very big work in making it much easier for foreign employees, foreign companies to come in the market. We've launched something we call the French Tech Visa, which is one of the most open in Europe. It takes approximately 25 days to get a visa to come work for a tech company in France. And it's a little bit longer, but not much for founders to actually come and just launch a company in France. So we're also welcome to that option. And I think the whole country is now much more open to startups and much more aware of how we need to work together at a European level. This is something that you might know we had a big political support to really push French tech forward. And this is something that is really now the biggest priority for President Emmanuel Macron to bring this French tech success at a European level. He launched an initiative last year called Scale Up Europe, really bringing together all the scale up from all the European countries and thinking, what do we need to do together as a European market to make it easier to really build giant companies. And a lot of initiatives come from there, finance, having a dedicated European fund for late-stage startups, talents, how to make sure the French Tech Visa can be replicated all around Europe, et cetera, et cetera. So if you land in France, you'll find very welcoming country towards entrepreneurship. We're the Mission French Tech based in Station F, which is the biggest incubator campus of startups globally, actually. We have more than 1,000 startups here, and a third of those startups are international startups. So it's not just French startups anymore. And that's something that has changed a lot. I left France for almost 10 years. And when I left in early 2010, it was very French. I would say most of the people would speak French, work in French, being much more French than it is today. It's changed a lot. All the business are working in English. All the administrative tools are now also translated. Everything is set up for you to come, and you will find support also from us, obviously the French Tech Mission, but from all those other big places for entrepreneurship like Station F. Like we have a big association called France Digital, which is also helping foreign startups land here. And you will find a very big collective. Everyone is really, really trying to succeed collectively. That was the idea with French Tech from the beginning, and that's really working in the day-to-day life.
Great. So I think we will definitely come to France ASAP. Thank you so much, Clara, for your time. It was great to get all your insights and great to see the work that you're doing. And it's also great to see how much you not only care about France, but also about really creating a pan-European effort and making sure that our continent will produce or will create a lot of very successful companies, especially the ones who are diverse and inclusive. Thank you so much for your time. Wishing you all the best for the upcoming weeks, and we hope to stay in touch.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Have a great evening.